Hi everyone, and welcome back to the channel. So, as you can tell from the title and the thumbnail, we are talking about how to survive a book buying ban. Now, I have made a lot of videos talking about how to effectively, well, not effectively, but it's effectively for me. I've made a lot of videos about how I effectively use some of my bookish memberships, like my book of the month membership, and then my um, Barnes and Noble premium membership. And honestly, like I mentioned in, I'm pretty sure both of those videos, um, we're all about conscious consume. Yeah, okay, that's what I was trying to say. We're all about conscious consumerism here. We are about consuming things consciously and putting thought into. I have my iPad off to the side, and so far it's a pretty good setup. The only concern is that it's anyway, like putting thought into how we consume in our day-to-day life, because we are in a capitalistic consumerist society. And so this video is partly prompted by that, but also largely prompted, I would say it's like 70-30%. 30% prompted by the videos that I've done about how to best utilize certain things, how I best utilize certain things with my bookish related memberships. And then 70% because I just got out of the book buying ban. So I wanted to share that with you all in this video. And again, so it's like we're all about being conscious with where we're sending our money, with where we're putting our money. And like honestly, like I mentioned this in my little disclaimer remember part, but doing a big book haul or even doing like a small book haul, like if you're getting like, I would say like at the very least, if you're getting 3 books, if you're getting 3 or more books, 3 at the very least, like it's a little bit counterproductive, counterintuitive to be doing it after a book buying ban, immediately after a book buying ban, because it's like you just went on a book buying ban. And like I'm not one to talk. It's a little bit critical as well. Like I said, I'm not one to talk because it's like we were just on a book buying ban talking about being conscious with consuming, and then here we are after book buying bans, and me specifically with talking about being consciously consuming things. Like here we are going out and buying books. So it's like it can seem, like I said, a little bit counterintuitive, counterproductive, a little bit hypocritical. Like I'm not saying it is hypocritical. I'm just saying I can understand why people might see it that way, why it might seem hypocritical. And like I mentioned in like the remember disclaimer section, not every book buying ban has to end the same way. I.e. with a book called post book buying ban, even though I've done one. I do have like, I thought I had suggestions. Okay, so I do suggest this a little later in the video. I was just going through my points that I'll be making a little later in the video, where it's like shake it up a little bit. And at the end of the day, be conscious with where the money is going, and be conscious with how you use your money. And I think that's the most important thing at the end of the day. So I have this broken up in 2 sections, like the ground rules, setup, and then other ways to get your reading hobby. So there are ways to go about a book buying ban, and even if you're not on necessarily a book buying ban in the strict sense and definition, like if you're on like a low buy, where basically like you are only buying necessity, well, book buying ban would basically mean like you're not buying books, and if you're on a buying ban, you're only buying necessities. So maybe you're on a low buy where maybe you only buy like 1 book a month, let's say. if your average is like 2 books a month, you know? So it's like this would also apply to like low buys, but if you're on like a book buying ban, well, again, in the strict sense of the definition or not, I think this would help. So for the ground rule setup, the first things first, kind of like what the section name suggests, is to set ground rules for yourself. How long, why you're doing it, what happens if you break it, etc., etc., and so forth. I talk about these. I try to talk about these when I go on a book buying ban. And for me, just because like for me, I don't buy books often enough that a week would make sense. So it would have to be like a full month. Um, it doesn't make sense for me to make it any shorter than a month. So usually my book buying bans are a month long. Um, Usually I'm doing it because I'm trying to save a little bit of money. Um, so that would be like how long, why, trying to save a little bit of money. Also, another why would be trying to get some more of my books read on my bookshelf. So that would be another why. What happens if you break it? So, um, with me, what usually happens is if I break it. So, like in my thing is, I do mention this in the third point, but if I read 3 books, then I get to buy a book post ban. And if I unhaul 4 books, then I can buy a book. So let's say I read 3 books and unhaul 4. So that means I would buy 2 books post ban. And so it would increase the more books I read and unhaul. So if I were to break that, let's say I buy a book post ban or pre-order a book. Also, like another rule for me is that pre-orders count. Like they have counts. If I am pre-ordering a book in the month or in the time frame of the book buying ban, then that counts. And also the reason why I personally do a month long is so that we can kind of build up the um, number of books read. Um, but again, I'll talk about that in the third point. Um, so like if I were to break it, let's say I buy it. So like another okay, backtrack. I'm going back and forth a little bit, but pre-orders count. So let's say the one I did in May. If I had pre-ordered a book in May, then that would have been considered as breaking the ban. But if I had pre-ordered a book in January for a release in May, then that pre-order from January would not have counted. Even though it would have arrived in May, that pre-order would not have counted as breaking the book ban. So it just depends on when exactly the pre-order happens. So anyway, so if I break the buying ban either by pre-ordering a book in that time frame or by buying a book in that time frame, then what would happen is if I would need to read 4 books, I would need to read 4 books to um, buy another book. Now, this does get a little bit finicky, a little bit weird, because let's say I've read 7 books, then, and again, my thing is like, read 3, buy 1. So then I would clump, so the first 3 I would have together, and then because I broke the book buying ban, then that's when it's like, oh, I can just clump 4 together. So it's like, it wouldn't necessarily be, it would be a situation where it's like, books 1 through 3, I could buy a book. Books 4 through 7, I could buy a book, and then 8, 9, and 10. Once I hit the 10th book read is when I can buy a third book. So it's like that's where it gets a little bit finicky, and that's where it's why I like having like the in the description. It's partly why I started including this in the description because I was already like typing it out, setting it up. Because it's like I could reference Storygraph, but like I was already creating lists and separating it out, like you saw in my May book buying ban. Um, I was already separating it out into groups of 3s so that I would know how many books that I could buy. And the same with the books I bought. I was already grouping it in groups of 4 of what I unfold. So it's like I was already doing that, and I was already typing that out. Yes, I can look at the story graph, but it's like I would need a little bit more of a visual, so that's why I did that. So it's like I could group, like the first 3 would be grouped together, and then the next 4 would be grouped together, and then there would be that visual of like, oh, she broke the book back down. So all that to say, set ground rules for yourself so you know exactly what's going to happen under certain circumstances, and you can be as detailed with your rules or as simple with your rules as you want. It really depends on what you want from the bookbinding plan and what you want to do it for and what you and how you want to do it. So I keep shifting. Anyway, so the second one is start off small. Now I mentioned that I usually just do my bookbinding for at the very least a month. Um, I was with my one in May. I was going to do that. Initially, I was going to do it for May and June and do a 2-month bookbinding ban. However, it just I was already because I was in like a really big heavy reading streak through May. I think I read like 13, 14 books in May in total. Um, so it was just like I didn't because I was already reading so many books. I didn't want to. And again, we're like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, trying to be conscious about how and what we're consuming, especially how we're consuming. I didn't want to open myself up to a really large book buying ban because one of my things, it's not necessarily one of my hard rules because when I do a book buying ban, I have hard rules and then I have like soft rules or notes, and it's not one of my hard rules, but basically what happens is like in this reading blog, I read 14 books, and then DNF, or not DNF, and then unhauled 8 books. So I could buy 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I could buy 6 books. And this was when I was only at like the 4 book mark initially, and before I decided that unhauled would come as well. I was kind of starting to see that if I kept it to 2 months, then it would have opened me to a bigger book haul. And one of my soft notes, what I was starting to say, one of my soft rules on my notes is that it like officially ends, like the bookbinding ban ends, but it officially like wraps up once I get the number of books as my reward. So it's like in this case, it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 books total, one of which would be a book of the month book if I am interested in any of them. So it's like once I buy those 6 books, then that's when it fully wraps up. And um, I'll probably have to like spread it out over like at the very least 2 trips, at least for Barnes and Noble. I talked about this in my book buying ban video, but it's all the way on the top shelf. I don't know why I'm pointing to it. I'm gonna try to focus on like manga, but even then, it's like I still might have to break it up into 2 trips because like books are expensive. Books sadly are a luxury right now, even though financially speaking, books are a luxury. Books are not a luxury. Books are a necessity, which is why libraries are so important, and accessibility features like Libby and Hoopla. That's why those are so important as well. But because we have publishing industry and all that jazz, book prices are increasing, and it's becoming more of a luxury when it really should not be. Anyway, that's besides the point. So I would have to like break it up into 2 potentially, and I didn't want to like be setting myself up for like a giant book haul because again, like I said at the beginning, it's a little bit counterproductive to be doing a big book haul post book buying. So yeah. So anyway, back to the point. I keep on tangent here, but back to the point. Start small with a week long, because then that'll like get you warmed up. And maybe like what I would recommend for starting off small is like maybe let's say birthday for your birthday month. The week before your birthday or like your birthday get together if you're getting together with friends or family. The week before, you set up a book bind. Let's say you're getting together Saturday on a Saturday. So like starting the previous Saturday, a week before, um, through the Friday before, go on a book bind and do something small, like I said, and instead of doing like how many books read, you could do how many pages read, or how many minutes listened to, or how many. Well, minutes might be a little bit hard, but like maybe how many like half hours listened to. So like every 30 minutes you listen to, you can do a you can buy a book, and then like your birthday get together. Let's say that Saturday, the book buying ban ends that Friday, and then Saturday your birthday get together. You go out and let's say you listen. Let's say you went with like reading. Let's say you set the rule as like I have to read 50 pages, and let's say you read 45 pages. That would be $3. So, and also, what like kind of like in the same vein, but um, if you have any gift cards, save it for the book buying ban or postpone. Save it for a book buying ban because then that would help at least alleviate some of the cost. um, anyway, so start off small with a week as kind of like practice and to see if it's something that would work out for you. And go with that. And don't be too hard on yourself because it's not that serious at the end of the day. The next one, again, this is ground rule setup round number 3, and it is set up a reward system post ban. Now, I did kind of mention this earlier, but not every reward system has to end in a book haul. I do use the book haul as an example for this one, but it does not have to be a book haul. And again, I'll talk about it a little bit later in the very last note for the ground rule setup. So, set up a reward system post book buying bin. So this would be buying a certain amount of book per read, or maybe post book buying ban, you get yourself a gift card, and you add $1 per book read, or like maybe you add like $5. You add anywhere between $1 to $5 per book read. Now, it might be a little bit weird to do $1 because if I think most gift cards have a minimum of 10. Most, if not all, gift cards are a minimum of 10. So that's why it's like between 1 and 5. Because like again, we're trying to be conscious of consuming here. So let's say you do $2, and then if you only read like $5, then you're only gonna have like $5. Or like you can always set that aside as cash to get a gift card or to get a book, or to add to your book fund. Um, but get a gift card where you add anywhere between $1 to $5 to a gift card, um, and this one would work longer for a book buying ban. So it would work better if you did like 2 weeks to a month long or longer, especially with like the $1, because like when you have it as a month long, and then that's when you can kind of, if you have it as at least at the very minimum a month long for the single dollar, then that's when you can try to build up to $10. Or and again, it doesn't have to be books. It could be pages read. It can be minutes read. It can be minutes listened to. So, $1 to $5 per 30 minutes listened. So, or you can do. I was kind of talking about. I kind of mentioned so you could do a book haul where you spend a certain monetary amount per book read. So let's say, kind of like on that 1 to 5 train. So let's say you do. So for every book read, I will spend $5, and then you have, let's say you read $3, that would be $15. And yeah, books are a little bit more than $15 usually now, sadly, but like yeah, not a big deal. But it would still be $15, and that $15 you set aside to buy the book or books would be $15 less. It's book math, but girlies get it. So it's like Like, if it's 17, you would still have to pay $2, but it's like you would set that money aside to do your book haul. So, um, or again, it's like maybe anyway. I've made my point. I'm trying to not over explain. The next one is to know how you're going to set up the book haul post. Know how you're going to set up the haul post book buying that. And is it going to be like two separate hauls? Is it going to be one big haul? Is it going to be using gift cards? Is it going to be using cash? Like, how are you going to set that up? And so that one's kind of self-explanatory, and it kind of explained a lot of those points, or like the sub points for this one and others, and we'll explain them in others. The next one, the fifth one, is to shake up the resulting rules with each one to give yourself some variety. So, for example, this past one that I did for May, I I read I read 3 books by one, and 4 books by one book. And maybe the next one I would do, I'm gonna listen to 30 minutes, and that's when I can buy a book. Every 30 minutes I listen to it, I can buy a book. And maybe, so that would be like rules, part of the rules. And then for the results, maybe it'd be like, okay, um, every 30 minutes listen to, I can add $5 to the book fund. So that maybe that way, once I listen for like an hour and a half, $15. So that kind of a thing. Shake up the results, shake up the rules so that you can give yourself some variety and you're not doing the same thing over and over again. Because then that's when it can get a little bit monotonous and you're just like, oh, another book buying ban, even though I kind of have to save money. Like, shake it up. And maybe it would be a situation where it's like, instead of like, because this is something that I've noticed I've been enjoying a little bit more, is if I have books that I want to I'll donate them. I'll donate them to my library. I'll try to find a little free library that's close enough to me. I'll donate them to a bookstore or to a charity of some sort, or like a charity store of some sort, or a thrift store. And like maybe instead of buying yourself books, you give back to the community. Like, okay, I read one book, I'm going to give up one book. Or I listened to 30 minutes, I'm going to give up one book. Or even like, even if you're not giving up a book, maybe it's like, okay, I've listened to 15 minutes, so I can get a book from the local free library, or I can get a book from the library store. That kind of thing. Shake up the rules and results to give yourself a little bit of variety. And kind of in that same train of thought, the last one is maybe don't do a book haul every single time you do a book buying ban, because again, it can seem a little bit counterproductive to be spending at the very least $15 on a book when you were just on a book buying ban. So like, shake it up. Like, imagine, like, donate to a library or do a little free library. Take a book, leave a book deal, or buy from the library store, because usually those are like secondhand and usually are sold at a discounted price. Or maybe instead of buying a book, you buy a um, book related topic, or you do like a review about or you buy a book related object and then you do a review of a book related topic. So that kind of deal, like, shake it up a little bit. So the next section is the other ways to get the reading hobby in. So first and foremost, the biggest one, especially if you're really trying to save money, libraries. Your libraries. And again, not everyone has a library super easily accessible. And that's where Libby and Hooper come in, because those can really help with not necessarily having to go to the physical library, or borrow from the physical library, but you can still borrow ebooks and audiobooks. So utilize your local library, because you can still, like, you're going to be borrowing the books, and yes, you have to return them after 3 weeks, but you still have them for 3 weeks, for 21 days. So utilize your local library. The next one is little free libraries, and again, not everyone has that one super close, but if you can download the app and then figure out which ones are closer to you or maybe close to a friend's house, take a book and leave a book from a little free library. And for me, like I have like a note in my um, book buying band videos where little free libraries I can take a book during my book buying ban because technically it's not buying a book, but because a large part of my focus for me during book buying bans is reading from my physical bookshelf. Um, so if I take a book from a little free library, even though I'm not buying it, I do have to leave two books in the little free library. So yeah, utilize the little free libraries, utilize your library. The next one is to borrow from friends and our family. This one can get a little bit finicky because like readers aren't the most inclined to loan out their books. Usually I'm okay with it with really close friends and really close family because there is that understanding that they're going to take care of the book and not ruin the book or intentionally not ruin the book. um, they're going to intentionally try to not ruin the book. Accidents happen, but it's like I know that the intention was there. And while we're on this subject of lending, borrowing books from friends and family, if something happens to the book, at the very least, offer to either replace it or offer to spot fund a replacement. It's like, okay, I can't get you the book. I can't go to the bookstore anytime soon and get you the book. But if you get yourself a book, I will send you a little bit of money to cover it if you have the financial means to do so. But it's like at the very least offer, saying like, hey, I can get you a replacement. Um, at the very least offer. Because if you just don't say anything about it, that's a bitchy move. But and borrow from friends and or family because if they have a book that's a I have a book on my shelf actually. I'm borrowing this from my friend and I still have to read it, but um it's currently June right now. But I will have it read by August 4th because her birthday's August 4th, and I'm gonna kind of well, it's not really gonna be a gag gift, but it's gonna be in that kind of white elephant type deal because it's her own book and I'm gifting it back to her for it. Anyway. So borrow from friends and family, and at the very least, do your best to not let anything happen with the book. So the next two kind of go hand in hand, so I'm going to talk about them together. And that is, if you're at a bookstore, read a little bit of any book or books that interest you. Read a little bit, sit down with it, or go off to the side and read a little bit. Like it doesn't have to be a full chapter. Read a couple pages, and then if it still interests you, wishlist it. Add it to a list. Add it to your TBR. Add it to your wish list that in that bookstore's app. Like if it has an app like Barnes and Noble or has a website where you can log into an account or create an account, wishlist it. Or like I use Libra FM, so like sometimes I'll wishlist stuff in Libra FM even if I want the um, physical copy. So if you're at a bookstore, read anything that interests you. Again, it only has to be a couple of pages, and if it still interests you, wishlist it. Or like even if you're not in the bookstore, like if you're seeing something online that interests you, wishlist it, place it on hold at the library, see if it's on a little free library, and then go from there. Because, again, conscious consumerism and also supporting our library system and independent bookstores. So, the next one is to do research into your favorite genres. So, this one will really actually help because maybe you'll discover new books you hadn't heard of. And let's say one of your favorite books, like me, is uh, The Hobbit. Wow, it took me a hot second to remember the name of that. Let's say like The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings. So with that, it's like if I were like I was saying part of it is because I am a Lord of the Rings fan, but I have it in the back. I don't know where I have it behind this one. But anyway, there was a series that I was seeing, the Ardenshire series, and I kept seeing that promoted. on my Facebook page, and because it was being promoted as a Lord of the Rings meets the Great British Bake Off, or it was promoted as that, or Ellen Enchanted meets the Great British Bake Off, or The Princess Bride, which are all like some of my favorites. Um, so anyway, so the first book, A Fellowship of Bakers and Magic. Let's say I hadn't seen it promoted, but I'd done research into the fantasy genre, being like, oh, what are people saying gives Lord of the Rings vibes? And that very well could have popped up. So it's like, do research into your favorite genre or genres, because you'll find a book. I guarantee you'll find a book, a title that interests you, and then you're interested in the synopsis, and then you borrow it from Libby or Hoopla or your local physical library, and then you love it and you want to buy a trophy copy. So it's like, it's that whole deal. Like, do research into your favorite genre or genres, and then kind of on the flip side, do research of books of genres you want to get into. These are your favorite genres, and the next two kind of all go hand in hand. So I want to mention the next two as well. Do research into the genres you want to get into, and then do research into the genres you don't typically read. And a large reason of why you want to do that is to kind of like expand your horizons. And it's not saying like if you try a genre you want to read or you don't typically read and you don't like the book that you read, that's okay. You're not expected to love every single book. You're not expected to love every single genre, but at least you're trying. So that's the whole point of those. And at least you're trying new books. Now, the next one is to read the books already on your shelves, even if it's a reread. Because I guarantee you, I guarantee you, there will be things that you pick up on in a reread that maybe you didn't pick up on in the first or even second read. Like, there are things I'm picking up in, like, The Lord of the Rings, even, where it's like, I read it once a year, but I listen to them as audiobooks when I go to bed, and I'll have it playing for a little bit before I actually lie down in bed. I'll have it playing while I'm lying down. And it's like, one of the things that I've noticed recently, one of the things I've noticed is that, like, I mean, this is something I've noticed over the past couple of years while reading and rereading The Lord of the Rings. Like, this is so fucking sassy. Like, I love it. Like, a slight spoiler if you haven't read the books, but Legolas is so fucking sassy and I'm here for it. Like, one of the big examples of this is in the Two Towers after Boromir's death, and they see the Riders of Rohan, and like Aragorn, he's like, Aragorn is, we love Aragorn, I love Aragorn, but Aragorn's down on the freaking ground, and he has his ear to the ground, and he's listening to the hoof plants, and he's like, there's a lot of them, and Legolas is just like, yeah, there's like about 100 of them, the blonde, like, there's about 100 of them riding around. I've been watching them for a while, and it's like, you didn't think something similar. It's like that's not necessarily sassy, but it's like you're not. And like I understand why Tolkien didn't have him say anything until Aragorn had mentioned it, because it's like you have a creature now who is all not quite. It's not all seeing and all knowing and all hearing, but they can see a really long distance off, and they can hear a long distance off. Their hearing is all excellent. Their sight is excellent. So it's like I understand why Tolkien didn't have Legolas say anything, but at the same time, it's like there's so many other moments where Legolas is like really sassy. And he's like, "Yeah, I knew this. Yeah," and I'm like, "I love you." Like I've always been attracted to Legolas, and part of my thing is that like I'm pansexual. I've mentioned it a few times. I actually discovered something recently on like TikTok, and it's called like very sexual, and like it's very sexual as when you're open to most genders, but you're more attracted to female to women or women presenting people. So it's like femme non-binary people, femme trans. Like you're more attracted to like a more feminine presenting person. Um, whereas like, and then I was like, oh my gosh, that kind of sounds like my one friend, and it's like a rare attraction to men or male presenting people. Um, and I was like, oh, that sounds like my friend, so I sent it to my friend, and then I was like, oh, what would be the opposite of that? Because it's like my type, visually, my type is elves. And elves are very much androgynous. And some elves are definitely more feminine presenting, but like, or feminine presenting in the sense that they have long hair. That is general is not feminine presenting. Anyway. Anyway, so I was looking to the opposite of this, and it's like I think it's like almond sexual because it's like a neutral term, and that's where it's like they're open to all genders, and then occasionally not attracted to more feminine presenting people, but attracted to all genders, no preference really there, but tending to lean towards male presenting people, so like men, masculine, non-binary, masculine, trans, mass trans. It's like I was like, oh my god, that's me. So it's like I still kind of like identify as pansexual because it's like I am open to anyone, but I would say like pansexual, almond sexual type deal. Anyway, that's besides the point. How did I get on that? What was the next one? Okay. Um. Anyway, so I got it because I got onto it because I was attracted to energy, and I watched the movies first before reading the books, and that's why I was always kind of attracted to Legolas because it's like Aragorn, like I love Aragorn, I do, but like Aragorn was always like so obviously like masculine, where it's like and so obviously like his energy was like yes, and it's like a little bit more subtle, you know. I think I was a little bit more attracted to like the subtle energy, you know. Anyway, that's besides the point. I got off on a tangent there. Anyway, so doing research, reading the books on your shelves, even if it's a reread, I did that one. Okay, the next one is to go through your books on your shelves to see if there's anything you want to donate. And for me, that's also why I put in, with this most recent book by man, it's why I put in if I unhaul a certain number of books, I can buy a book. Because then it will give me a little bit more incentive to actually go through my books and be like, okay, am I really going to actually pick this up? Well, maybe not actually, because where's what I have? This one, Cash Friend. Am I actually going to pick that up? No. Ideally, I would want to, and it's one of my favorite books ever. But like, ideally, I would want to pick it up again, but I can't. So it's like, go through your books, see if there's anything you want to donate, and like, look at a book. Am I actually going to read this or reread it? Am I actually going to want to reread it or read it? Am I actually going to want to read it or want to reread it? And if the answer, and like the keyword is wants, because like I said, maybe like you love the book, like wrong way, like I want to read this one. I want to read it. I won't be able to just because like emotions. So it's like, am I going to be the keyword is want there? Because like even if you can't bring yourself to reread it, do you want to? So go through, see if there's anything you want to read, see if it's something you actually want to read or reread. Now for this, I did try this, and this is not something like I couldn't get into it. I might try it again at a later date and borrow it from the library. Um, but it's not necessarily like the reason I didn't uncall it with the other books, but the reason why I'm giving it to my friend and the reason why I am donating and calling it is because like I don't see myself wanting to pick it up again or wanting to try it again. Like I'm open to trying it again. I'm open to trying all books, but I don't see myself like actively wanting to again. So that's that. So that's why it's like go through them, see if there's anything you can unhaul, donate, uh, resell, and then the very last thing I want to talk about is check out other bookstores, especially the indie ones that you can then later check out again post ban and support them because we want to support our independent bookstores. And at least here in the US, yes, Barnes and Noble is the only thing standing in Amazon's way from getting a hold on the book publishing industry and the bookish industry. However, that does not mean we just don't support independent bookstores. There are two, I've already checked out one And I think I checked out a couple of others because like I really like Romans. I love going to Romans in Southern California. It's just a little bit of a drive. And then there's like the last bookstore, and then there's Annabelle's bookstore, Annabelle's Book Club LA, and then there's another one I want to check out that's pretty close to me, and it's like a 30-minute walk from my house, which wouldn't be a huge issue. It would just be like it would have to be a situation where I go check that out first, and then walk back towards the library and hang out at the library for a bit. If I were to walk there. So anyway, so Sammy's bookshop. Um, and then there's another one opening up in I think I want to say Los Angeles area, Burbank area maybe. That I really want to check out, and I know some of my friends would love that one once it opens. So like, there's that one as well. So it's like search up local independent bookstores in your area, support them, and like maybe like if you're visiting during the book buying ban, because like with me, for as a good example, I'm not a big romance person, and Annabelle's Book Club, I think it's called Annabelle's Book Club. Um, it's not necessarily a romance specific bookstore, but it is a little bit more romance heavy. Sorry, I'm a little bit gassy today. It's a little bit more romance heavy, so it's like that's not the ideal bookstore for me. Um, the same with the Rick Bodice. It's not necessarily like I think the Rick Bodice is definitely more romance focused, so it's like it's not ideal for me. Whereas like Romans or Sammy's bookstore or not Sammy's, it's Sunny's. I think Sunny's is the one I support through Libra. Um, Sunny's or the one I want to check out. I think it's called Blackbird Books and Coffee. Um, that one that one is a little bit more like I don't like. I'll have to go and check out now. It's hopefully opening this month, June. Hopefully, fingers crossed. Um, but yeah, that one will also be a good one to check out. And again, like I said, if you're going like during your book buying ban, talk to like the booksellers or talk to the owners and be like, hey, like what books do you recommend? What books do you like? Um, and talk to them about some of the books that they like and recommend, because then you have some sort of an idea of maybe what to get post book buying ban, or maybe what to borrow from the library. So check out your local bookstores, independent ones. Like I mentioned earlier, if you're at a bookstore, sit down and read it for a little bit. Um, do not read the whole thing, you guys, because and really like if you're reading at a bookstore, really try not to damage the books unless it's your own book and you've already bought it. Really try not to damage the books because it's like I'm all for testing out books when you can, but really try not to damage it, like I said, and don't read too much because then it's like at that point go to your local library. So or go to Libya or Hoopla. So anyway, with all of that said, those are all my recommendations for how to survive a book buying ban. If you've made it this far in the video, comment down below with some of your recommendations, some of the things you've done, some of the things you don't do. Let us know below in the comments. And with all of that said, thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next video.